There it is. Welcome back to the channel, the night edition. So I'm getting ready to pull the intake. If you've been following along with this little project, I've been fighting this, not really fighting it, but troubleshooting this vacuum leak that it's had. Now you could hear the vacuum leak when you shut the truck off, and the truck doesn't have a smooth idle. It's never ran where the crap since I bought it. But it's also had amateuritis really, really bad under the hood. Somebody's put cylinder heads on it, and somebody's made a mess from the cylinder heads up. So if you remember before I talked about it, I took the air pump off and all the air pump tubing and all because it was just so cobbled together. The cobbleness doesn't stop. I think this will be the end of the cobbledness. I got the intake ready to come off. It's got a Allen bolt. It's got one with a 3/8 head, and then it's got, you know, all the regular bolts. So I'll be replacing all those with the correct bolts. But, you know, it just amateuritis hour with this thing. So bring you up to speed what I've been doing. So when I bought the truck, it ran, but it ran like total garbage. It had a bunch of plug wires crossed. Fixed that. It ran pretty good. Changed the oil. I put a set of wires on it. It ran a little better. I still haven't taken this truck down the road because it's never idled smooth, and it loads up, just rolls heavy fuel out the exhaust. Sprayed around the intake. The upper intake gasket I thought was the problem. Pulled the upper plenum gasket was ripped, and somebody had glued it together trying to save it. So I replaced that. So good, that's where we are. Put it back together, fired it up. Still didn't run right. Still ran like crap. Sprayed around the intake again, still leaking. Now, on these Fords, on these 5.0s, even the 5.8 motor, the intake comes up and then goes over. So it's real hard to get under there and see these back three injectors. So I'm spraying in there. I sprayed down around the bottom of the injector, and it's smoothing out. And you could hear it actually sucking the carb air cleaner in. So, okay, it's got to be injector. I figured O-ring or something. So when I pulled the intake back off, I noticed that the fuel rail wasn't sitting all the way down. And at a couple of the O-rings, you could actually see the base of the O-ring. So I said, that's got to be it. Took all the injectors out, cleaned them all up, all new O-rings, put it all back together. Nope, still doing it. Sprayed in there again, and it's leaking where the intake meets the cylinder head. So I've got it all back apart again. We're going to lift the intake off and see what we find. Well, whoever put this intake gasket on did a shitty job. I believe we found our problem. Let's bring you in for an inspection as well. You can see that this gasket slid all the way up. It's actually there, and here's where I'm spraying, right here where it's leaking there. This gasket is not in there right at all, neither is the other side. I don't know what they did. It almost looks like they put this thing on. You can see here, it's not right at all. It's way up. If I'm not mistaken, I think they put this thing on backwards. Well, it is a roller motor. Not that we really care, but that is kind of neat. So, get you back up there. So it looks to me like they put this gasket on backwards. The writing should go to the top, to the outside. That's how I've always done them. But I mean, they obviously jammed this on there because you can see they egged out the hole, jamming the bolts down in there. I mean, you can clearly see that the gasket slid way up. Oh, there you go, right there. Look at that. So there's our vacuum leak. So let me get this thing all cleaned up. Get it all cleaned up, and then we'll reassemble this pig and change the oil and see what it does. That's all we can do. But yeah, let's see, they put the gaskets on wrong. God only knows if they got the head gaskets, head bolts right. They can't do something as simple as put the intake back on. I'll tell you, when you're a carpenter, stay a carpenter. Just because you can turn 2 bolts on your dad's 73 Buick doesn't make you a mechanic. Leave shit alone. Just because Grandpa had a 69 Camaro that ran, 18s doesn't make you a mechanic. Stop it. If you know tile work, stay at tile work. If you know how to bang hammers and be a wood butcher, be a wood butcher. Stop touching cars. Stay tuned. We'll be back. So, I stand corrected. Originally, I thought maybe they put the gaskets on backwards, but it does actually on this gasket say head side. So they did actually have them on correct, but they didn't have them sitting correctly. I'm thinking they didn't have these little tabs where they hook on the edge of the head gasket, and the gasket was actually bowed this way. So, now got them in there. I put a little bit of gray under the gasket right here, and then I don't use Felpo provides you with these the rubber ends. I don't use those. I've always found that they always leak. I give it a nice thick bead of ultra gray RTV, let it set up for a few minutes, and then roll with it. So I'll let that set up for a few minutes, and I'll set my intake on. Now, I can't say this enough. Make those surfaces as clean as you can get them. Take the time, clean all your bolts up. Now, all 4 of my corner bolts, I'll put some Never Sees on the threads, because these 302s and these 5/8s, they like to rust the corners out. I run a little bit of a bead on the gasket itself, just a thin little bead, and the reason I did that is the corners of the intake have a little tiny bit of pitting in it, so that'll just kind of help fill it up. I know some guys are going to ask about this handy dandy little gasket squeezer. All right, sit tight, I'll be right back. So now I got the intake back on. It's been a little bit. I like to let that sealer cure up just a little bit, not too crazy, but so the intake's torqued down, working from the center out. So now I'm going to go ahead and put the rest of this garbage back together, change the oil, and I kind of screwed myself because the truck's in gear and I pushed it with the tow truck up a little bit. So guess what? I won't be able to put the distributor back in. I'm going to bring it up on 1, set it. I had marked it when I pulled it out. It started raining. And I pushed it forward with the tow truck, and it was in gear. Oops. It is what it is. So I'm going to end that here, and then hopefully we got this thing straightened out. So holler at your boy. Keep it reals. I'll catch you on the next one. Well, I'll catch you in a few when it's running right. How's that sound? Well, just like any project, there's There's always some kind of dumb issue. So now the vacuum leak's fixed, and it's running, but it's hunting for an idle. Some idiot has had this throttle body up. They bent this all up. They folded this adjustment screw. I mean, like I said, amateuritis. Sometimes if I just tap on the idle speed motor, it straightens out. So now we got to figure that out. But no more vacuum leak. We're running. Actually sound 10 times better. Got the timing set. Just got to get rid of this terrible 5.0 truck lope that I absolutely hate. But the toilet's running again. And don't sound bad. Of course, it's raining out today. Starts easier. And now when I shut it down, it doesn't have that whistle no more because obviously the vacuum leak's fixed. Now see, it just straightened itself out. Last time I tapped on the idle speed motor, it straightened right out. So that's what's going on with the Nite. It's back together. Figure out this idle problem. Probably got to put idle speed motor because, like I said, last time I tapped on it, it straightened right out. So that's going to conclude today's episode of Toilet Bowls. Catch me on the next one. Holla at your boy. Keep it reals.